The kingdom of Ermilla is a small nation surrounded by four great powers. For nearly 2 centuries he was ridiculed as a weak nation. But since a hero stepped on the front lines, Ermilla has never again been defeated against the armies of the great nations. This hero's name was Prince Alan Ermilla, the second in the line of succession to the throne. However, the reality of the hero was quite different. Alan, overwhelmed, just wanted to abandon his kingdom and flee. He was exhausted by the constant wars, finding it madness that the prince always had to fight in the front line. His personal servant, Celia, scolds him for his morning noise, while Alan despairs of the insanity of his life. Celia asks if he does not get tired of screaming, to which Alan answers that he is already sick of everything and insists on his desire to flee the kingdom. Celia tries to cheer him up, remembering that he is seen as the hero of the nation and that, thanks to his victories, even she, as her maid, can walk with her head up. Alan disdains, saying that being a prince's maid would be a source of pride. Celia answers that a prince without conquest would not be respected. Shocked, Alan asks why he is not included in this regard since he risked his life. Celia calmly says she respects all the other royals. Celia confesses she loves her master but quickly changes the subject, asking why he hates being the chief of the army so much. Alan explains that no one in his right mind would throw himself in danger on purpose, and that he is not an old general who lives only of honor and glory. He expresses his desire for something useful and tangible to himself, rather than just empty titles. Celia asks what it would be. Alan's answer is direct and unexpected: women. He explains that instead of wasting time in the war, he could use his money, which has already accumulated in great quantity, for something worthwhile. By mentioning that he would use the money to go to a brothel, Celia immobilizes him with an arm key, making him scream in pain. Celia says that although she is usually kind, she cannot forgive such a comment, while Alan, with irony, suggests that she seeks the meaning of Gentile. Freeing himself, Alan declares that he is leaving the position of commander to retire. Celia answers that war is about responding to the fans of other nations. He complains that the fight is always done by soldiers' ants, questioning why the prince needs to be one of them. Celia then gives him a report, revealing that 5,000 Lazart Federation soldiers are marching toward their borders. Alan panics when he realizes he has to go to battle again. Celia confirms that the survival of the kingdom literally depends on him. In a final effort, he suggests that his capable creation solves the situation, but Celia claims that, as a simple servant, if he escapes, she will flee with him, blocking his escape route. With a confident smile and a little scary, Celia declares, "Now master, it's war." Completely cornered, Alan faces his fate with despair. Defeated and furious, Alan plays the roles high, cursing his situation. Meanwhile, in the defense operation of the Ermilla Kingdom border. On the other side, at the Lazart Federation camp, the atmosphere is of calm and confidence. Rachel, the cadet of the Lazart Federation, relaxes with confidence, considering that the war against the little kingdom of Ermilla will be the easiest of his career. Federation intelligence estimates that Ermilla's defensive forces at the border are only 500 men, who will try to resist entrenched in her fortress. The Federation, on the other hand, is proud of its superior military technology, planning to use its might to crush the enemy. They mobilize 5,000 infantry soldiers with state-of-the-art equipment, backed by dozens of newly developed armored vehicles. The disparity of forces is so great that the outcome of the battle seems obvious to any observer. For Rachel, the battle is so predictable that it would be more fun to play a game of chess, where even Ermilla's so-called hero would be easily crushed. He aims to use this victory to secure his triumph and break the balance of power with the other great nations. While dreaming of his ascension, a soldier rushes in with an urgent report, interrupting his calm. The soldier reports the unthinkable. The Federation's vanguard unit was decimated by only 2 soldiers from the enemy kingdom, leaving Rachel in a state of shock. Shocked, Rachel will immediately investigate the scene with his own eyes. On arriving at the scene, Rachel witnessed the devastation of his troops, a scene of destruction he could not imagine. His men, in panic, report that the enemies are only 500 meters away and beg for the retreat order to avoid total annihilation. Rachel hesitates, for retreating would mean the shame of losing to a small nation. He refuses to believe that his elite troops have been defeated. Suddenly, a voice comes up behind him. It's Alan, who arrived on the battlefield and ironically asks why there's no welcome reception for him. Alan continues the provocation, saying he came to answer the fans' calls and questions the Federation's lack of hospitality. Rachel wonders if this is the famous hero. Celia assumes there's no tea for enemies because they're too busy with their own interests. Alan quickly says it was just a field joke, while Celia laments the lack of tea and snacks for the occasion. Ignoring the tension, Alan complains to Rachel about the overwork, stating that, as a prince, he should not be sent to battle. Rachel, furious with the prince's audacity, curses him in his thoughts, calling him a prog of a petty nation. Their soldiers are confused, not understanding how they should react, reminding Rachel that, despite being heroes, they are just a prince and his maid. Retrieving composure, Rachel orders his men to attack, shouting that if they beheaded there, victory will be theirs. As the soldiers advance, Celia scolds them with sarcasm, questioning their lack of manners for pointing swords at a lady. With an elegant gesture, Celia prepares to show them what happens to those who have no manners. Celia invokes her ice magic, Hyoka, creating a fog that instantly freezes the approaching soldiers. Alan goes into action, fighting hand-to-hand with the Federation soldiers, complaining that his will to go home has reached the limit. He yells at enemies who just want to come home to have fun with girls, asking if they can't understand that feeling. Seeing his troops in difficulty, Rachel receives news that his war machines are ready again and smiles with satisfaction. He declares that if the quantity has failed, quality will prevail, while a tank advances towards Alan, who seems surprised that the Iron Mountain still moves. With a cry of fury, Rachel orders the tank to crush the 2 heroes of Ermilla. Alan responds with his own magic, deep and burning yellow like bullets, conjuring a massive ray that completely destroys the tank. With the destruction of their most powerful weapon, the Federation soldiers begin to defect. Alan mocks, asking if they were so scared. Celia comments on Rachel's rudeness by shouting at a lady, and Alan agrees with a dull and uninterested tone. Rachel finally understands the scale of power he faces. The 18-year-old commander of Ermilla is a wizard capable of destroying armored vehicles with a single blow, and his maid has a similar power. He realizes the fatal mistake he's made. We totally underestimated them. Who knew a weak kingdom had 2 wizards so absurd? Apart from Rachel's despair, Alan complains that the battle was only a long and tiresome walk from the capital. Rachel, in one final act of challenge, insults Alan, calling him the weak prince. Celia reacts immediately, furious with the offense to her master. The cadet then turns his anger to Celia, insulting her by following the prince to the battlefield, accusing her of being a dirty whore. He continues his insults, calling her vil bitch. Before you can continue, Rachel is struck by lightning, an instant punishment for his words. Alan appears before him, saying that no matter Rachel's great cause, his men have families to return to. He declares that Rachel's war is stained by selfish greed. With a determined and frightening smile, Alan decides to finish the battle quickly. The battle ends, leaving behind only the wreckage of Ruchel's ambition. That night, the kingdom of Ermilla remains undefeated. After the victory, Alan congratulates his troops, celebrating the fact that despite the numerical disadvantage, there was not a single casualty. He attributes success to the union and teamwork of all soldiers. Victory once again belongs to Ermilla, which to Alan means only one thing. He explodes in celebration, screaming that now he can finally go home and party with girls, and toast to victory with his soldiers. Your men thank Alan and Celia for their heroic actions, both in the attack and defense of the fortress. The party continues with Alan's promise that the drink is on him, and that no one has to worry about money. His men hail him as a true hero, whose generosity will certainly make him popular with women. At the height of the celebration, Alan takes off his shirt for Celia's discontent, which asks him to dress. Alan tries to flirt with Celia, saying that men today prefer women who take the initiative over the inexperienced. Celia responds in her own way, knocking him to the ground with a straight blow. She immobilizes him in a comical leg key, while he screams that the legs should not go above the neck. Despite the painful situation, Alan realizes an unexpected softness on his back. His eyes glow with a perverted epiphany. He is feeling the butt of a young maiden. The other soldiers, full of envy, shout for the commander to switch places with them, wanting to feel Lady Celia's ass. Celia is extremely embarrassed by the attention, while Alan begs her to stop, because the leg key hurts more than the butt. One of the soldiers comments that the commander never changes, always getting into this kind of situation. Sumanov, the captain of the soldiers of Ermilla, appears laughing at the scene, saying that the situation is literally under her thumb, or rather, under her butt. He continues the provocation, commenting that for Alan, Celia is probably the only person under whom he will be. Sumanov provocatively asks Alan how it felt, curious about experience. Alan admits that it wasn't bad, which yields him another punishment from an angry and ashamed Celia. As the crowd celebrates the scene, Sumanov and the others toast Lady Celia. This is the chronicle of a small kingdom and its so-called prince hero who only wants to escape, but ends up unwittingly spreading his fame to the nations. Meanwhile, in the royal capital of Ermilla, life in the castle follows its course. Roy Ermilla, the first prince, receives the victory report. He comments, satisfied, as expected of Alan, efficient work. He reflects on his brother's strategy, two magicians attacking enemy lines while Sumanov defended the fort, definitely his style, Roy thinks. With the captured war materials that Alan brought in, Roy prepares to begin his own work, although he considers it only damage control. A messenger rushes in with urgent mail for Prince Roy. Roy opens the letter, intrigued by the urgency. After reading the letter, the only thing Roy can say is, "This is unexpected." The shocking news is that the first princess of the Fanral Empire is on her way for an official visit to the kingdom. Roy wonders what could be the real goal behind the visit of the princess of such a powerful nation. In the imperial capital of the Fanral Empire, the princess prepares for her journey. She expresses her desire to meet the hero of the kingdom of Ermilla and find out what kind of man he really is. Back at the pub, the party ends with an unpleasant surprise for Alan. It's all his account. Meanwhile, soldiers observe an empty table, commenting that the usual event is about to happen, arousing the curiosity of the newcomers. The next day, Sumanov and the soldiers are in their usual training. They take a break, noticing that the day is strangely peaceful. Sumanov, the captain of the Knights of Ermilla, talks to his men about peace, at least for them. Meanwhile, Alan Ermilla, the second prince, begs his older brother to grant him permission to retire, while his personal servant Celia observes. His older brother, Roy, simply laughs and refuses his request. Roy Ermilla, the first prince, tells Alan that his request, even from his little cute brother, is difficult to answer. Alan suggests a 20-year holiday commitment, but Roy argues that the kingdom would have disappeared from the map by then. Alan asks if it doesn't hurt. Roy sends him to war, to which Roy replies that he is also the target of murderers, so they're even. Alan threatens to flee the kingdom in the middle of the night, and Roy sarcastically thanks for the tip, praising his kindness. Alan boasts that if he took it seriously, only a wizard could stop him from escaping. For Alan's shock, Roy reveals that he's already asked Celia to make sure he doesn't run away, and Celia confirms that she won't let him escape, cutting his escape route. Celia tells a momentarily hopeful Alan that if he really insists on leaving the kingdom, she will accompany him. However, Celia quickly undoes her hopes, adding that she is sure that the situation will not come to this. Desperate, Alan screams, questioning why the hell he was born prince, convinced that the gods made a mistake. Roy tells Alan that he should thank the gods for his magical talent, but admits to feeling a hint of guilt for sending him to war. Alan asks for a raise in his allowance, but Roy refuses, explaining that the treasure is always in the red and that their sister controls the state funds. Alan despairs about not having money for women and asks why he needs Celia's permission to do so. Celia immobilizes him to show why he needs her permission, while Roy announces it's time to leave. While holding a twisted Alan, Celia asks Roy if he has any plans. Roy confirms that a guest has arrived. Alan asks who the guest is, and Roy suggests it has something to do with his diplomacy work. Roy keeps making a mystery, telling Alan that if he says invited, Alan can guess the guy. Roy reveals that the guest is the first princess of the Fanral Empire, a visitor to a great nation. Roy explains that thanks to Alan taking over and stopping territorial losses, they were able to receive repairs, but their safety is not yet guaranteed. Recent repairs barely cover expenses, and the nation will not prosper if the situation continues. Roy claims that in order to break this impasse, they must act. They must develop the nation, strengthen the army, and block foreign invasions to ensure survival. Roy believes that only with these measures will his brother Alan's burden be relieved. With his brothers working hard, Roy decides it's time for him, as the oldest, to do his part. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, Alan plays a card game with an intense look. Alan plays his cards on the table, revealing a royal straight flush, but Celia's fun reaction makes him suspicious. Roy enters the room while Alan accuses Celia of cheating. Celia innocently denies it, saying she would never deceive her master. Celia asks Roy what happened, reminding him that he should be with the Imperial guest. An elegant woman enters the room, performing and wondering if she is in the presence of the hero of the kingdom. The newly arrived princess is shocked to see Alan chained to her chair, with Celia beside her. Roy, accompanied by the princess, comments with a smile that the scene they are seeing is quite amusing. Alan screams at Roy not to come in suddenly and get the wrong idea, insisting he's not an advanced-level pervert. Celia whispers to a confused Alan that the woman is Lady Lys Fanrals, the first princess of the Fanral Empire. Lys formally introduces himself to Alan, the hero of the kingdom, while taking his hand, Alan stuttering, too. Alan asks Roy why Lys came to him, since diplomacy is Roy's business, especially because the Empire keeps picking fights. Lys thinks his suck and kick approach is violent. Lys admits that her side is not guilt-free, and suggests that they pretend she didn't hear Alan's violent offer. Alan comments with Roy that dealing with an imperial princess is far above his pay grade. Roy informs Alan that this time it's his responsibility too. Alan tries to escape, shouting goodbye, but gets knocked down for being in chains. Celia sarcastically comments on her master's gracious-faced fall, while Alan screams that it was not on purpose. After the incident, Alan, Roy, Celia, and Lies sit down to formally discuss matters. Celia serves tea while the conversation continues. Lies expresses his surprise that a wizard serves as a servant, noting that in the Empire the Magi are treated as nobility. Alan clarifies that it was entirely Celia's choice. Lies is impressed by Celia's loyalty, commenting that most with such power would seek ambition. Roy adds that all this loyalty is directed to Alan. Celia smiles and says she owes her life to her master. Celia explains that wealth or power does not attract her. Lies says it's a shame, because recruiting her could have been easier than recruiting the prince. Lies concludes that winning Alan first is the best strategy. Alan answers that if she can keep him out of the war, he will seriously consider her offer. Lies reflects that Alan's proposal will not be easy, for a wizard's purpose is the battlefield. Alan asks them to get to the point, asking if Lies's visit is just a neighborhood shelter that has spread to international politics. Alan deduces that the conflict is internal to the Empire, not between nations, and tries to withdraw from the matter. Alan tells Lies to let him go, admitting that if a beautiful woman hugs him, he's forced to sit down. Lies has fun with his frankness. Alan insists he won't be tricked into getting involved in her family fight, but Lies the silence, saying he might be her type. Alan gives in immediately, telling his brother he will hear the rest. Celia reacts with disdain and Lies rebukes her. Roy explains that Princess Lies came because she's on her way to the nation of Ratia. A map shows the route from Ermilla to Ratia, passing through the magical nation of Ruzin. Alan asks why she's going there. Roy explains that the Empire is in a war of succession, and the second prince has attacked Ermilla to gain merit. Say you're sorry about your brother. Lies claims he does not wish to inherit the throne and supports the faction of the first prince. Alan correctly deduces that Lies's journey to Ratia is to secure allies for the first prince. Lies confirms that he is correct, praising his insight. Alan answers sarcastically that he feels honored by the compliment. Roy reveals that the second prince sent forces to attack Lies within the kingdom of Ermilla. Upon hearing this, Lies declares he plans to leave immediately, which cheers Alan up. Alan explains that if the second prince attacks Lies in Ermilla, he can use the princess ransom as a justification for invading the kingdom. However, if she leaves Ermilla and they confront each other outside, Ermilla's victory would be considered illegal aggression, allowing them to demand heavy repairs. Alan prefers the option with greater repairs and asks if he should intervene. Roy denies it, saying he has a different plan for him. Lies explains that a war in Ermilla is unlikely because its destiny is Ratia. Celia asks what she means. Roy explains that the second prince will wait along the way to attack Lies because this is his safest chance. Lies adds that for the second prince, killing her is all that matters, and people always choose the easiest option. Lies explains the agreement. In exchange for Ermilla's help, the kingdom will win a pact of permanent non-aggression of the Empire, but only if the first prince ascends the throne. Roy continues, stating that in return, Ermilla will provide his greatest asset. The asset they'll provide is Alan the hero. Roy asks Alan to accompany the princess to Ratia, a war mission disguised as an escort. Alan accepts, moaning that at least it frees him from the invitations to dance. Alan challenges Lies, questioning how she can be so sure that the first prince will win and that he will return with spoils. Lies is speechless before Alan's question. Celia intervenes, telling Lies that her actions are reckless and put her own life in danger, even by her faction. Liquefy Celia's concern, stating that as the first princess, her duty is to minimize bloodshed for the future of the empire. She explains that with Ratia as an ally, they can suppress the second prince and end the war of succession without further violence. Lies confidently states that she is prepared to risk her life to achieve this goal. Alan interrupts her, telling her not to talk like that, and to Liza's surprise, he accepts the mission. Preparing for departure, Sumanov informs Commander Alan that 500 soldiers are ready for escort. Alan finds the number excessive, but Sumanov explains that Prince Roy insisted, just in case. Alan asks if the Imperial soldiers will also join the escort. Sumanov seems hesitant to respond, revealing something that shocks Alan. Before you can leave, Roy approaches to tell his brother one last thing. Roy smiles and just tells Alan to be careful. The motorcade leaves, crossing the border to the neutral zone. Inside his carriage, Lies reflects on Alan Ermilla. Lies thinks that although Alan is famous as the undefeated hero, something about his personality does not match his reputation. Still, she considers it a success to have him as an escort and concentrates on reaching Ratia, but her reflection is interrupted by an ambush. Lies remains calm while her guards shout orders to protect her at all costs, determined to show Ermilla's strength. Alan takes action, releasing his lightning magic against the attackers. Alan states that anyone who threatens a woman's life deserves no mercy, complaining that the ambush happened just in time. Sumanov joins the fight, excited by the fun, while Celia notes that everything is happening exactly as Princess Lies predicted. Alan turns to Lies with a malicious smile and tells her that the trip to Ratia will be a dangerous picnic. The moment the entourage crosses into the neutral zone, they are ambushed, confirming that there is a traitor among them. The moment Alan's entourage left the kingdom, they were ambushed. The information leaked, which means there's a traitor among them, to Alan's fury. During the fight, Alan questions Lies if the Empire does not have a strong family bond. Lies answers that if there were, a war of succession would not even exist. Lies reveals that she envies the closeness of Alan and Roy, but Alan demands that she apologize for leaking information to the enemy, suggesting that she use her charms. Lies responds with sarcasm, asking if there is no one watching, which angers Alan, who unleashes his magic in a cry of anger. Alan releases his lightning magic, quickly eliminating the enemies around him. Liza's date is surprised to witness the magic used by the hero. A narration explains that magic arts are the supreme form of magic, where a master elevates all spells of an elemental attribute to a level that only he can use. The explanation concludes by defining the domain of an attribute as magic arts. It is revealed that Alan's attribute is yellow, linked to lightning, and that few in the world have reached the peak of magic arts. Its magic art, developed through the study of lightning, is electricity. The art of a wizard is usually unique, but it may have numerous applications. For Alan, a simple touch can paralyze an enemy, and with enough energy he can cast arches of fire. Lies notes that unlike most magicians fighting from a distance, Alan's ability in hand-to-hand combat gives him an advantage. The attention turns to another key fighter on the battlefield. Sumanov, captain of the Knights of Ermilla, delights in battle, declaring that that is the true essence of war. He provokes his enemies, calling them useless meatbags and finding joy in killing without restrictions. Sumanov, the captain of the Knights of Ermilla, advances with his massive blade, overthrowing enemies without hesitation. It is explained that although the kingdom has two powerful magicians, the presence of Sumanov is a crucial part of its continuous victories. Alan complains to Lies about the reduced number of his soldiers. Sumanov sees it as an opportunity to fight with more freedom, while Alan rages for having to do all the work. Lies explains she brought in a small army on purpose so it doesn't look like she was starting a war. Alan, frustrated, demands that Lies help lift the morale of the troops, suggesting that she use her charms to motivate them. Lies agrees and addresses the soldiers, asking them to do their best to protect her. With a blink of an eye, Lies wishes the soldiers good luck. Soldiers, inspired by the princess, become furious with their enemies and prepare to fight to the death for her, declaring that a man who attacks a woman has no justice. Alan is moved by the loyalty of his men, while Celia considers them as simple as her master. With the number of enemies not decreasing, Alan decides to finish the fight quickly and asks Celia to remove everyone from the field. Celia agrees and prepares to use her powers. Celia uses her magic to remove the soldiers from the battlefield, but her strength blows them up. Alan complains about the rude treatment, but Celia answers that he's the only real man for her. With the field clear, Alan prepares to finish the battle, muttering that that is not the work of a prince. The enemies prepare, uniting their shields in hopes of repelling Alan's magic. Alan declares that shields aren't enough to stop him and cast a powerful ray spell, deep and burning yellow like a spear. Watching from his carriage, Lies concludes that none of his magicians can match Alan and decides that he wants him by his side. With the battle over, Alan expresses his relief for finally having peace, and Celia congratulates him on his good work. Alan approaches the carriage, commenting on Lies's calm despite the ambush. Celia asks if the ambush was within Lies's expectations. Lies ignores the question, stating that they must hurry to the border of the Magic Nation so that they do not have to camp outdoors. The entourage continues its journey under a clear sky. That night, Lies announces that they will camp outdoors for Alan's shock. She explains that it is a precaution, since the original plan leaked and stopped in the village would make them targets of a night attack. Alan complains, expressing his desire for a soft bed and explaining that he cannot ride a horse because his magic frightens animals. Celia provocatively offers handcuffs and fetters as a perfect traverse for Alan. Alan accepts camping and asks Lies if she feels uncomfortable sleeping next to them. Lies answers that her interests are aligned for now, and that they are only temporary allies. She states that if it is to fall into the plans of the second prince, she prefers Alan to kill her first, for the corpse of a nobleman may still be useful. It reflects on mortality, accepting its destiny. Lies asserts her determination to die as a princess who accomplished something meaningful. Alan scolds her, telling her not to act like she's okay to die for her duty. He acknowledges that his responsibility and cause are noble, but reminds her that, first of all, she's a young lady entitled to her own happiness. He explains that her attitude would hurt those who risk their lives for her, which surprises Lies, who thought they were only fighting for the nation. Alan reassures her that her men are the type to risk anything for a woman and that she can trust them. He promises that personally he will also protect you. He reminds you that someone is waiting for your return. Alan walks away, commenting that men are simple and satisfied with a woman's smile, before informing Sumanov that they will camp. Sumanov doesn't care as long as he can sleep, and the other soldiers agree. Meanwhile, Lies calls Celia to talk. Lies comments that Celia's master is really someone special. Celia agrees with a smile, stating that he is her pride. That night the group camped under the starry sky. Alan and his men plan the route, considering cutting through the Magic Nation to get to Ratia faster. They ponder the risks because an ambush in the Magic Nation would cause international problems, deciding that the neutral zone is safer. Sumanov notes that even in the neutral zone they can be attacked at any time, predicting an exciting journey. A soldier asks about Alan's bruised face, which reveals he was punished for accepting the princess bath offer. They ask for Celia, and Sumanov answers that she went to watch the princess during the bath. Men have a perverted epiphany when they realize that two beautiful women are bathing together. Alan, with determination, decides he can't miss a chance to spy. Inside the bath tent, Lies thanks Celia for accompanying her, admitting that she would be anxious to be alone. Celia says it's no bother, because she was already planning to stand guard anyway. Lies invites Celia to join her in the bath. Lies expresses her desire to talk from woman to woman, while Celia, when undressing, claims to be only the prince's maid. Lies doubts Celia's claim. Lies suggests you have a good memory. Lies reveals that she was shocked to see Celia in the kingdom because she remembered her noble and boring parties. Lies reveals the true identity of Celia, Celia Celestine, the prodigy of the nobility of the magic nation, and asks why she moved to the kingdom. Outside, Sumanov reassures another soldier, saying that the general always fails in his attempts to spy. It is revealed that the prodigy of the Celestine family of the magical nation of Ruzin is none other than Celia Celestine. When Lies asks you why you came to Urmela, Celia's memories come back. One morning she's greeted by another nobleman, your friend Monica. Monica expresses her lack of confidence in finishing the practical test on the last day of the exam period. Celia reassures Monica, suggesting that they have tea and the usual coffee after they pass the test. The scene takes place in the magic nation of Ruzin, where Celia and Monica live. The magic nation of Ruzin is described as a great nation built on magic, with remarkable development. Countless magicians gather in Ruzin to research, sustaining the culture of the nation and its domination of magic. In Ruzin, those who handle magic with skill are respected and privileged, and Celia was one of them. During her practical examination at the academy, Celia stands out, mastering almost all the spells of the blue attribute and winning the praise of her mentors. Despite the compliments, Celia aspired to become a user of magic arts to contribute to the growth of her nation. Without Celia knowing, two men are watching her, considering her impeccable and the ideal candidate to become a magician. One of the men suggests, with a sinister smile, experiment directly on Celia's body. Men ponder whether the strongest wizard could be created through human experimentation. Celia refuses to participate in human experimentation and confronts her father, who discards his opinion as irrelevant. Celia's father insists that experimentation is for the good of the nation and the advancement of magic. Celia's father argues that a single wizard can turn the game of a war, justifying the need for experiments. He continues, stating that if more wizards could reach that level, the nation would become unstoppable. With stronger magicians, they wouldn't even need their sage anymore to guarantee victory in war. Celia's father grabs her, demanding that she offer her body for the good of the nation. Desperate, Celia realizes that she does not want to be a guinea pig, fearing she will become an empty shell, even though she knows what the researchers were like. Your friend Lady Monica tells you she knows a route to escape abroad, giving you hope of escape. Celia clings to the hope that Monica will be waiting at her rendezvous point for the escape. That night, Celia runs to the rendezvous point with Monica, hoping to find her friend and freedom. When she arrived, Celia found out it was a trap. Monica, in tears, apologizes as the men capture Celia to take her to the research facility. While she's dragged, Celia screams at Monica about her betrayal. At the research facility, she begs the experiments to stop, expressing her desire to just live. Celia is finally taken to the research facility, where the experiments will begin. Researchers discuss the failure of experiments. Celia's mana reserve increased briefly but soon returned to normal and she suffered great agony. A researcher suggests using Celia as a breeding matrix to create new wizards, noting that the only change in her so far was her mutant eyes. Horrified, Celia sees her reflection and mutation in her eye, wondering what will happen to her. Unable to bear more, Celia escapes the facility. The guards are alerted and a search begins to capture her before she reaches the neutral zone. Celia runs desperately through the forest, feeling hopeless because she has no home, no one to trust, and no place to go. Exhausted, Celia collapses. Alan appears before her, commenting that their meeting must be fate. Leaving the jokes aside, Alan approaches Celia and asks if she's okay. Celia, exhausted and confused, can barely see the man's face in the moonlight and wonders who he is. Celia remembers the trauma of her mutant eyes. Alan looks at her with genuine concern. Alan tells Celia that she has beautiful eyes and encourages her, saying that if she gets dressed, the men will pursue her. While Alan smiles, Celia wonders why he would call his eyes beautiful despite the mutation. Celia discards Alan's comment as flattery, but he insists it's not, before asking if she has a place to come back. Seeing her cry, Alan realizes it was cruel to ask about her family and immediately apologize. Alan reflects on the brutality of not having a home, remembering many people who saw that they never made it back to those who expected them. Alan puts his coat on Celia, confessing he hates the war but can't ignore people like her when her stalkers arrive. Facing the persecutors, Alan offers Celia a place to stay at her house, since she has nowhere to go. He encourages her, saying that if it hurts, she should only ask for help. Alan explains that someone's cry for help gives him a reason to fight. With that reason, he claims he can save her by reaching out to her. He reaches out to Celia, encouraging her to ask for her help. With her heart racing, Celia finally manages to whisper the word, help. Despite fear and pain, Celia realizes that if she can put everything aside and reach it, she can find happiness. With a new determination, Celia begs Alan to save her and he smiles, glad she asked. Alan promises to save her, and when his enemies call him a fool, he gladly declares that he will be a fool for her. Alan releases his lightning magic, declaring that he will give his enemies the war they want to protect Celia's new home. Celia realizes that this is the beginning of the miracle of the spinning hero. The scene moves back to the bath tent at camp. Back to the present in the bath tent, Liz is amazed to hear about the past that Celia and Alan share. Celia reveals her mutant eye, explaining that she usually hides it with magical tools as it attracts looks. In a flashback, Celia explains that after defecting to the kingdom without having anywhere to go, Alan insisted with his brother Roy couldn't leave her. Roy agrees to recommend Celia as Alan's, attending on the condition that she agrees. Liz notes that from that day on, Celia and Alan grew up together as stronger magicians, and she never left his side. A flashback shows Celia being welcomed by Ermela's royal family. Celia smiles, declaring that her home is next to her master. Liz reflects on the story, understanding that it all began the day Alan reached out to a girl who had lost everything. Liz smiles, commenting that their story is romantic. The scene returns out of the tent, where Sumanov watches the camp. Outside, Alan and his men prepare to spy on the bath, with Sumanov watching their foolishness. Alan encourages his men, saying that if they lose the chance to spy on an Imperial beauty bathing, they will regret it forever. Alan reassures his men that they will not be executed if they are caught, for they are needed for the escort, which gives them praise for their cleverness. Sumanov decides not to intervene, predicting that in the end, the only one who will get hurt will be Alan himself. Celia suddenly appears behind Alan, scolding him for his dirty thoughts and physically punishing him. While Alan is punished, the other soldiers, instead of helping, cheer for Celia, asking for a better view of punishment. Lies, still in the shower, hears the commotion and thinks it's a waste to lose all that madness. A transition scene for the night. Meanwhile, without anyone knowing, a mysterious traitor conspires with the enemy. The traitor informs the enemy that the entourage is cutting through the neutral zone, but claims that the long road to Ratia still offers many opportunities. The enemy cares about the presence of the hero, but the traitor reassures him, saying he has a plan and that, after all, he is only a magician. The traitor reveals his plan to ambush the entourage and take the head of the princess near the border of Ratia. Alan helps set up the tents, realizing this is the first time he's been camping with his men. Sumanov reminds Alan that he always sleeps in inns and villages while soldiers camp outside. Alan argues that, as royalty, he expects his dignity and pride not to be stained with dirt. Sumanov reassures him, saying that for them even the mud in their boots shines and other soldiers offer to help. A soldier carries supplies while Alan and Celia watch the camp being set up. While talking, soldiers suddenly notice that a slight mist is beginning to form in the camp. Out of nowhere, Celia hugs Alan from behind, calling him master. Celia explains that she needs her daily dose of time with the master, and Alan answers that it is not a vitamin supplement for the shock of the soldiers. Alan responds with indifference to his jealous soldiers that Celia simply cannot get through a day without clinging to him. While soldiers draw their swords jealously, Celia boasts that being able to spoil her master is a servant privilege. The soldiers, enraged, declare that having a pretty girl clinging to him like that is a crime punishable by death. Lies approaches, asking if she's interrupting something and offering a first aid kit, which makes Alan assume that being injured is inevitable. Alan asks Lies what brings her there since they're still setting up camp. Lies answers that it's time for her night bath, which Alan interprets as an invitation to spy. Lies says she won't stop him if he doesn't care about the consequences, but Alan, feeling Celia's grip, refuses the tempting offer. Alan thinks with himself that even if he could take a peek, the divine punishment that would follow Celia would crush him. Lies tells Alan that personally, she still appreciates him. With a seductive smile, Lies invites you directly to join her in the bath. Alan screams in enthusiastic acceptance of the offer of a mixed bath, shocking his soldiers. Feeling a dark aura radiating from Celia, Alan is immediately thrown to the ground. Sumanov advises the princess not to provoke the general too much. The journey to escort Princess Lies to Ratia has lasted a month. As they approach the Ratia border, Sumanov alerts the soldiers to remain alert. Alan tells Lies to hold on a little longer, anxious for the mission to end, and it all becomes just stories to tell during a drink. Hours earlier, Alan announces in a meeting that so far there have been no important ambushes. They managed to stop the killers, and the night raids were rare thanks to surveillance. Based on the situation, Alan decides it's time to split the entourage into two groups. Celia questions the decision, believing that staying together is safer, but Alan explains that it is a simple risk management. The entourage discusses the strategy, considering that although the union gives them numerical strength, the safest way to protect Princess Lies is to prevent the war from happening. Alan predicts that the enemy will attempt a confrontation just as they are about to cross the border to Ratia. Lies agrees, recognizing that the border is the best opportunity for the enemy to attack, since all his movements are leaked to the second prince. The soldiers express concern, stating that if the situation turns into a bloodbath and the enemy breaks its lines, just protecting the princess will not be enough. Another soldier agrees with the gloomy assessment of the situation. Alan reiterates the plan. From that point, they will divide into two groups, one serving as bait to attract the enemy. Celia announces she'll stay with her master, but Alan refuses firmly. Lies proposes the logical division. She, Alan and her men in a group, and Celia with the soldiers of Ermilla disguised to impersonate her. Alan explains that he prefers Liza's men to take the bait because it will make the enemy believe that the princess is with them and will pursue them. Liz agrees with Alan's plan, while Sumanov expresses his desire to remain with the general. Sumanov explains that he is never boring with Alan, but Alan denies his request, reprimanding him for raising death banners. Celia, upset to be separated from her master, is comforted by Alan with the promise of a reunion soon, then deciding to refuel her energy. While Celia refuels with the master's energy, Alan orders Sumanov to choose 10 men to accompany him. Alan gives one final instruction, reminding everyone not to hesitate to flee if the situation becomes too dangerous. He emphasizes that security comes first and that they must retreat if necessary, for the princess will be safe with her group. The soldiers respond in unison, confirming they understood the orders. While walking through the forest, Alan complains that they are making royalty climb mountains and hopes that the Empire will not send a complaint. Liz assures Alan she's fine, but she's joking that any complaint would be about his espionage incident, to Alan's embarrassment. Alan reaffirms to Liz that their primary mission is to ensure that she reaches her destination safely. Alan explains that the work of the bait group is simply to attract the attention of the enemy and escape. Alan assures Liz that her men are not idiots and will retreat with Celia if the situation becomes dangerous before asking what she thinks. A soldier asks Liz if she does not feel in danger, surrounded by 11 hungry wolves without any of her Imperial guards nearby. Liz answers honestly that she felt even more in danger in the company of her own Imperial guards. She adds that she saw firsthand how kind Alan's men are, especially him, which makes him happy. Suddenly, Alan's attention is attracted to something he sees from a distance in the forest. Alan recognizes the magicians of the Magic Nation and wonders about their presence in the neutral zone, suspecting they are not there for a picnic. Alan speculates that they may be a patrol of a research facility, looking for something specific. Alan speculates that they may be a patrol of a research facility, looking for something specific. Alan decides it's best to go quietly to avoid trouble with the wizards. The moment they try to get away, the wizards launch a surprise attack on the group. A huge ball of fire blows up near them, while the wizards scream to get down on the ground if they don't want to be baked. Shocked, Alan screams, questioning why the hell the wizards are firing magical attacks on them. Liz finds the interference of the wizards strange and meaningless, even being near the territory of the Magic Nation. Alan wonders if the attack could have been an accident. His doubt is quickly dispelled when he sees the magicians preparing for a new attack, confirming hostile intent. Alan counters with his own magic, screaming for the wizards to be careful not to fry the rabbits hidden in the woods. Their lightning strike hits the wizards, incapacitating them momentarily. Alan screams for everyone to run, taking Liz in their arms to escape her stalkers. While fleeing, Liz ironically comments that she never imagined that her first time being carried as a princess would be like this, wishing it were more romantic. Alan agrees and rushes them to continue running through the forest, pondering the reason for the wizard's attack. One narration explains the political deadlock. Attacking recklessly would give other nations a pretext for war, so attacks on random civilians are avoided. Alan concludes that given the political situation, the Magi must have a specific reason for attacking them. Another group of magicians appears and Alan orders his men not to engage in confrontation, for the priority is to protect him and the princess. Alan warns his men that they are no match for a wizard in direct combat. Alan decides to intervene personally, conjuring a powerful spell, May the Hero's Way Shine with Thunder. After decimating the wizards with his spell, Alan orders everyone to run out of the woods towards a safe place. The group rushes forward to get out of the dangerous forest. When they leave the forest, Alan puts Lies on the ground and confronts her, saying that the situation is not as she described it. Lies, equally shocked, apologizes, admitting that she also did not expect that unfolding. One of Alan's soldiers warns that the situation ahead is terrible. The scene moves to the Ratia border. At the border, an army of the Empire with 1,000 soldiers and hundreds of magicians awaits. Alan is shocked to see the army in ambush formation, questioning since the Empire joined the Magic Nation.